Welcome to the Women in STEM podcast, your go-to destination for exhilarating journeys through the triumphs and challenges of extraordinary women, shaping the world in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I am your host, Kelly, and together we will explore the stories of visionary tech CEOs, groundbreaking scientists, and insightful recruiters, and many more women, making this podcast a dynamic showcase of global talent. Join me as we unravel the stories behind their success, offering a first-hand account of their experiences and invaluable advice at every stage of their remarkable career. Get ready for a thrilling exploration of innovation, resilience, and empowerment as we amplify the voices of trailblazing individuals, breaking barriers and building a future where brilliance knows no boundaries. This is the Women in STEM podcast, where inspiration and knowledge collide to propel us forward towards limitless possibilities. Hi, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. Hello. So my name is STEM Babe online, and I'm a content creator behind the page STEM Babe. I basically focus on sharing career opportunities for people to level up in their career, look at, high salaries, breaking down salaries, as well as provide career advice, especially within the field of technology for people who want to break into tech. In my professional life, I am a cybersecurity specialist. So yeah, those are my two things: content creation online and cybersecurity specialist in real life.
And by content creation, where exactly can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Those are my two main pages, but I am also growing on LinkedIn as well. On LinkedIn, I'll probably be doing more conversational posts that people can read and go into a bit more depth about the conversations that I may share on TikTok and Instagram.
Yes, she has great content, and I'll make sure to link your information in the bio.
Great.
So, what is general advice that you can give to people who are aspiring to build a career in technology? Where can they start?
Right. That's a very interesting question, because I feel like when people say break into tech, they refer to tech as an industry rather than a skill set. So I want to reframe people's way of thinking and identify what technical skills would they like to develop, and then look for opportunities that align with that. Because I think when you say you want to get into tech, it's like sort of saying you want to specialize in medicine, but within medicine you have heart surgeon, neurosurgeon, brain surgeon, and sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming. So I think it's good to see tech as a skill set that you apply to an industry, identify potential skill sets that you'd like to develop, and then work from there and find jobs that align with the skill set that you want to develop. So that's like my general sort of theme when I talk about breaking into tech. The second thing I'd like to say is find networks, right, within your organization and outside of your organization. So within your organization, especially if you work for a large corporate organization, they probably have groups and societies that you can join where they have, spaces, safe spaces for people to come together who come from the field of technology within the company. And I say this because you can then connect with people in your immediate sort of circle, your immediate corporate life, who can give you insights and, conversations around, the different types of technologies they use, how they use technology, and the different technical roles within the organization. And also just help you be better informed about how technology is being used within your industry. The second thing I would say is networking outside of your organization. So find groups and communities again that align with technology. So for women, there's Code First Girls. For Black women, there's Coding Black Females. But for Black individuals in general, there's Black Young Professionals. And when you go to these events, you get exposed to people who work in different who have different types of skill sets, who use those different skill sets in different industries, and you can have conversations with them to find out more about tech and the roles that they do, etc. And you find out a bit more insider information about how to break into tech, their journey into tech, and sort of, their experience of working within the tech space. From that, what I would also do is research into potential job opportunities and tech roles that are out there, just to give you a bit more direction potentially as to what area of technology you'd like to go into. That will give you some sort of a direction. It's not necessarily a goal, but if you say, you know what, I really want to become a data analyst, you do research into data, the tool sets, the programs available, help guide your direction in line with that. And also when you're networking and connecting with people, you can ask, hey, does anyone here work for data? Like, can you tell me a little bit more, etc. So that's networking. And then the second thing is opportunity, right? Try and expose yourself to as many opportunities as you can and identify different routes into technology, right? So that can be a coding boot camp, which is what I did. That could be a master's degree in a specific technology. And, the government have a lot of initiatives where there's basically scholarships being given out to people who want to pursue higher education within, tech. Also, again, within your organization, they might have opportunities for you to have, training or gain a certification in line with the technology of interest that you want to get into. Again, when I talked about the networking, you might be able to network with people within your organization who use technical skill sets or use tech within their role to ask potentially for shadowing experience or work experience where you can basically, shadow them, follow them and see really like what is the tech about that they're using. So that's boot camps, using training budgets or certifications, potentially doing a master's, doing a secondment, and also online courses as well that you can do in your own time. I think when it comes to breaking into tech, you should try and diversify the routes and the paths that you use to try and break into tech and try multiple different routes, but also try and identify what kind of a learner you are. Because if you're someone that likes pressure, if you're someone that, you need a deadline and you need projects and stuff, potentially a master's might be best suited for you. If you're someone where you prefer that self-paced learning, you prefer doing things in your own time, then potentially an online course which is self-taught might be best for you. If you're someone that prefers to be hands-on, etc., then maybe a coding boot camp where they have workshops might be for you, and an apprenticeship or, a secondment as well. So there's different routes into tech. Explore those different routes. Be open to all of them, identify what kind of learner you are so you ensure that the route that you take is the most effective in ensuring you get into technology, as well as networking within your organization and outside of your organization. And most importantly, people need to give themselves time. You need to give yourself time when it comes to getting into tech, because people come at tech like you're winning the lottery or something. My journey took a year and a half. So people need to give their journey into tech a bit of grace, and understand that it's a process. It's not something that may necessarily happen overnight unless, you're fortunate to get on a program that has like a guaranteed interview and then, placement afterwards, then yes, maybe in that case. But I think when you're breaking into tech, there's so much you need to take into account. Even what I've said has taken me ages to describe. So you need to give yourself grace and give yourself time and be committed and determined to getting your first role or landing your first role within tech.
I think that's a great answer, and you've definitely hit all the main points. Tech is such a massive industry that I think a lot of people just think that, it's a one size fits all when there's so many different roles in tech and so many new roles that are also being developed. And I noticed on your social media page that you mentioned that you're a cybersecurity influencer. So I was wondering if you could speak on a bit of your insight on the current state of cybersecurity, as well as how does it refer back into tech, as well as people who might be interested specifically in cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I can't obviously get into the details of what I do in my role. However, I can give you somewhat of a general summary of, what's actually going out there and what's out in the public. So essentially, cybersecurity it's an industry that's growing. It's going to continue to grow. The attacks that are being performed are becoming now more sophisticated. They're becoming more intelligent. They're evolving. They're creating, and that's what makes cybersecurity one of the most interesting spaces to be in. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue evolving, and the threats that we're going to see are going to be new and very interesting. I think as well, like I said, if you take anything from me in this conversation, is that tech is a skill set that you apply to an industry. So when we say cybersecurity, I don't like to think of it as an industry. I like to think of it as skill set. I like to think of it as a mindset that you apply to an industry to help protect their assets and their information and their data. So when it comes to cybersecurity, every single organization needs cybersecurity protections. And for someone like me, I studied chemistry at university, and a lot of people are like, what does chemistry have anything to do with cybersecurity? Well, in March, there's actually an event being hosted by, a chemical company, a STEM company called Renewable UK, and they are looking at how cybersecurity threats are basically posing a threat on the renewable energy sector. So regardless of, the industry that you're in, the types of attacks that can be performed in the cybersecurity space can impact many different industries, right? So when you think about cybersecurity, research into sort of the top 10 attacks that are happening, and then understand that those top 10 attacks are probably happening across multiple industries, right? And like I said, it's growing, it's evolving, they're becoming more sophisticated, and it's going to impact every single industry. I like to say that, cybersecurity is like the new way of attack, right? People used to physically attack. I mean, they still do now, of course, but now they can launch sophisticated attacks from the comfort of their room and have immense impact on the infrastructure that's critical to the UK, for example. In the cybersecurity space, it's very, very much impacted by, as well as technology evolving as well. It's actually very much impacted by what goes on in the geopolitical space. So whenever you hear anything on the news that's, of geopolitical interest, there might be, issues, geopolitical tensions between China and Russia. I mean, China and the US, for example, let's say, expect there to be an increase in cyber attacks when stuff like that is announced and when those things are happening, because cyber attacks are now sort of complementing physical attacks, but also in response to stuff that's going on in the geopolitical space. So if you're very much interested in geopolitics and, stuff that's going on in the world politically, then cybersecurity is probably an industry that you'd really love to go into. If you're also interested in having a skill set that you can essentially apply to any industry, cybersecurity is definitely one of those, because every single organization needs to have their systems protected and customer data protected, because if it goes wrong, it could lead to things like data breaches. It could lead to things like people not being able to access stuff. It could lead to things like, work colleagues not being able to access their work laptops because a hacker has infiltrated their work's, internal systems. So yeah, cybersecurity is a very exciting place to be in. Definitely an area one should look to get into, and it's very much influenced by what's going on in the world of politics, in the news. And it's really good to keep up to date with that and try and see if you can research into, okay, if there's an announcement that's made on the news and the government in the UK, can you find any information about is there an increase in cyber attacks, etc., etc. So yeah, cybersecurity is, yes, it's a great place to be getting into, and I'm not being biased. It really is.
Yeah, cybersecurity is extremely impactful. And actually, this weekend, I finally watched the Die Hard trilogy.
Okay.
And Die Hard is a like it's an action movie, and it's set in the early 2000s. And it was funny how the main character was kind of reacting to cybersecurity then, and how the whole world was coming to an end because of a cybersecurity threat. And
Mhm.
I think Hollywood has definitely done a number on kind of its own interpretation of cybersecurity,
Mhm.
which can either put people really interested into it or put them off because they feel like it's some sort of really
Mhm.
outlandish thing that you have to be super technical and super smart in order for you to get into it. But
Yeah. There's different roles within cybersecurity. Again, the whole breaking into tech, right? So
yeah.
you've got tech, and then under tech sits cybersecurity, and then under cybersecurity, there's different branches that sit within that. I don't know about all of them because I'm a niche. I'm a specialist in a niche aspect of cybersecurity. But again, if you're interested in cybersecurity, at least you've sort of reduced the pool of options that are there from going to tech to cybersecurity. It might be then worth, looking and researching into the different roles that sit within there, and that might be of interest, and then potentially aligning your training in line with that, starting off with the basics and then building up from there. But yeah.
Switching gears, since we're talking about Hollywood and film and TV, you recently made your debut on Channel 4, talking
Yes.
about food price inflations. How does this topic of food price inflations kind of intersect with technology, and how can technology either help or hinder this?
Do you know what? That's interesting because so how I got approached for the opportunity to begin with, it wasn't actually from like a tech perspective, should I say. They just sort of wanted personalities, people from the general public to obviously be involved with talking about cost of inflation. However, with that being said, there is obviously technology that's involved in the retail space, retail tech, I'd like to call it, where essentially they're using information, especially if you are using apps like, Club Card Points or whatever app the retailer might use. If you're using those apps, they're able to collect more data about you and specifically cater offers and deals in line with your shopping interests. And they're obviously able to get information about where you shop, when you shop, how much you spend on what items, in what times of the year do you spend on this, that. So yes, as part of it, I was just reviewing it as a customer, but from a tech perspective, um, in the retail industry, they need technology, they need data to basically customize offers that align with their customers' shopping behavior to encourage them, obviously, to spend in that company or that retailer, the supermarket essentially, and keep them shopping with them essentially. So they can obviously manipulate the prices in line with what's in demand and what they know will entice their customers to buy, etc. So although I went on there for like fun purposes, it was interesting because I know that, they're obviously when you use these systems and stuff, they're collecting data. They've got so much information. They probably got a profile of, STEM babe. She is in her mid-20s. She likes to shop at Tesco's at 5 p.m. or at 12 p.m. because she goes to work. So therefore, we are going to try and create offers that align with meal deals or food that she likes to buy when she buys food for lunch during her work break, for example. So in the retail tech space, data is the new gold. And obviously, machine learning and AI will be used in line with that to optimize the offers that they show you as a consumer and a shopper.
Definitely. I think food is something that we all can relate to. We all eat
Mhm.
food, we all have to go and buy food. And I recently went to a Google event which was covering food tech, which is
Mm.
actually an industry that we kind of don't really talk about that much. I think a lot of people have probably heard of fintech, but food
Mhm.
tech is
Mhm.
a ever-growing industry. It covers all, the Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all of these
Mhm.
companies. And like you said, data is super important. And as much as you would think that they would have a system in place that is able to gather all of our data and able to give you specific recommendations, they actually haven't cracked that algorithm just yet. So
Yeah.
if you are somebody who loves food and you love tech, going into food tech is
Mhm.
definitely an upcoming industry, and it's one that's going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm going to continue to say it. Tech is a skill set that you apply to an industry. I believe anyone from any background, if they have an interest in technology, whether that's data, whether that's cyber, whether that's machine learning or AI, they can find ways that they can incorporate the skill set from their academic background, if they've done a degree in that, and align it with tech to see how it could be used to improve the industry in general. So I like to say we're living in an era of where we're seeing the convergence of skills from different industries come together to create unique career opportunities and unique unique career opportunities, like you said, food tech, like I said, retail tech. And yeah.
Something that really caught my eye about your page and what kind of set you apart for me from all the other content creator was the fact that you spoke about the cost of living and rent prices in London. If you're somebody who hasn't checked out her pages and seen some of the content that she makes, some of it will make you want to laugh and cry at the same time.
Indeed.
And I was wondering, like, what advice do you have for
Ooh.
people who are interested in moving to London? I feel like you've covered this topic quite a bit, but I was wondering if you could make a mention.
Do you know what? I'm going to give a bit of background information as to why I even started sharing rental
Yeah.
properties, because people might be like, what's that got to do with tech? But really and truly, as I said, I'm a careers content creator. And one aspect, massive aspect of your career is finding somewhere to live. So every single creator who has a job in London has to face the same issue of finding somewhere to live. So I was just highlighting the issue that everybody who's a career professional in London is facing, and that's the London rent crisis. Um, so, with regards to the best advice, honestly, right now it's a complete shambles, but I would have a look out for schemes that are available. So, there's one scheme called London Living Rent, and essentially, they basically give you subsidized rent in a certain sense for a set period of time, for if you're a working professional in London, and you're living in London essentially. So potentially having a look out for the London Living Rent scheme, to see what properties are available that you could apply for, that might be useful in helping you obtain, like, really nice apartments at a subsidized rent, or lower than the market average. I would also say, please don't just feel like you have to give in to when what you call it, estate agents and landlords pressure you to buy it, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're salespeople. They need to make a sale. They're going to sell you the world. They're not going to tell you the ins and outs and the problems of what's renting in London. As long as you sign that contract, you pay that deposit, they've done their job. They don't care about what happens after that, because you're now signed on to contracts and you're basically screwed. So when it comes to finding rental properties in London, don't feel pressured by sort of the sales pitch and the persuasion that estate agents and landlords do, that you end up missing out researching on very important information, because that's when you can sort of be trapped in dodgy contracts, weird apartments, and all sorts of weird and random stuff. I am starting to see a lot more professionals are living outside of London, close to areas that have really good connectivity into the city. So potentially, if London is a bit pricey, it might be worth looking for properties that are just outside of London but have really good connections to central London, that you can catch a train, and in London you're like within 20 minutes. So yeah, look out for schemes that are available, because there's a few out there. Don't fall for the trap of the persuasion of these dodgy slumlords and landlords and estate agents. And also be open to potentially moving outside of London, especially if you're doing hybrid work and you're only in the office 2 days a week anyway. And try and look for somewhere that has really good connections into London, where you can actually just get a train into London, so that you don't have to deal with all the literally the circus of events that come with trying to rent a property in London.
Yes, I myself live here in London, so I know the struggle is real and it's definitely something that, yeah, rental prices here in London can be super crazy. I would say if you have a friend that already lives in London, to try to
Mhm.
ask them, what methods did they use? And yeah, I think you gave really great tips and examples.
Okay.
You have a thriving social media, and I
Ooh.
know as a podcast creator myself that creating content does take time. And I was
Mhm.
curious as to how you are able to manage your time, and
Mhm.
do you have any
Mhm.
effective time management strategies that you utilize?
That for me is work in progress. I can't lie. I don't have an effective strategy for time management. I don't. I'd be lying if I said I do. I just kind of come up with ideas and I just create content, which is actually really bad and not sustainable in the long term because obviously as I grow, etc., and obviously trying to grow my career, then I need to find the balance between those two. Essentially, what I'm going to try and start doing in the New Year's, because New Year, new me. What I'm going to try and start doing is actually planning, dedicating each day to a specific topic in line with the content that I create, and then on the weekend finding material that relates to that content, or that day, and then just creating it and then just deploying across the different various platforms, because right now it's just vibes. If I see an opportunity, I'll just share. If I just salary this, I'll just share. Whereas I need to be more strategic in dedicating. Maybe Saturday I plan out my content for the day: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday salary, Tuesday opportunity, Wednesday I don't know, rent, and then on Saturday finding opportunities, filming the content, saving it. Probably best to use CapCut, because on CapCut you can download and then edit it if you need to, and then repost. So that's what I should be doing, but I'm not doing. It's just after work, okay, vibes, I want to create a video, cool, but it's not sustainable. Um, but how I repurpose content across my various platforms is now what I've started to do. I create a video on TikTok. TikTok lets you download videos before you post. So if you're happy with your TikTok video and it's in drafts and you're waiting to post it, what I would recommend is downloading the video first, and then you can repurpose that same video on Instagram. If you've already posted the video, you can go on Snaptic and download the video and then repurpose on Instagram. And there's levels to this now, because obviously now I've got my LinkedIn page. I'm trying to create an automated system where, again, I'm using AI to basically use AI to create a written format of my video content, so that I don't necessarily have to go in and write it out. So I'm trying to explore the automation of, as soon as I create a video, AI will read the transcript, then create a LinkedIn post in relation to what I've talked about in the video, and then post it on LinkedIn. So that's something that I'm exploring to sort of automate the process of content creation, really.
Yeah, automation is definitely the key when it comes to dealing with bulk amount of content and just trying to make it a lot more easier on yourself. I am referred to my podcast as the Women in STEM podcast, and you refer to yourself as the STEM Bay. And I was
Yeah.
wondering if you've noticed any particular challenges that
Mm.
women in STEM face, and if you have any specific advice for women.
Interesting. So with regards to content creation, I find that especially when I'm talking about salaries, um, I tend to get a lot of mails that don't necessarily give the best response. They tend to come on no one's earning that kind of money. Why are you sharing this information? The information you're sharing is correct. Whereas I get better responses and reception from women. So whenever I talk about money, especially high paying industries, the reception I get from men can be quite challenging, and they can often try and question your information and the source of where you're sharing stuff, which is what I find. But I tend to find women are very receptive to it. They are inspired for it and they like to take action. Um, when I started off my tech journey, bearing in mind, I believe now, I don't know what the stats are. It's either 0.7% or 2% of the population in the UK in the tech industry are Black women. So when I started to break into tech, I there wasn't any representation. The only reason why I actually got into tech because there's a lady called Yasmin. Shout out to her, she changed my life. She shared the salary she earned in tech, she shared her journey into tech, and she shared the challenges within tech. So I think one of the challenges when I started breaking in was that at that time she was really only the only example that I could see in terms of representation wise of a Black woman doing well and earning money within the tech space. And you can't really become what you don't see. But then obviously, with the likes of Coding Black Females and Code First Girls, um, they've created spaces for Black women to pursue careers within tech, which is great. With regards to my professional life, it's to be honest, I'm not going to complain. I'm very fortunate. I've had a good experience of breaking into tech. But I'm quite open-minded anyway. So I recognize, yeah, well, there's not many of us. There aren't going to be many of us, but I'm hoping that as we progress in society and we're seeing more, Black women in tech and women in tech share their journeys, share their opportunities that they've had since working in tech, we can continue to inspire um the younger generation, especially, women, to pursue careers within tech. So obviously, professionally, we are the minority, but I personally don't let that hinder me because I know it's my responsibility, my role, to increase awareness of the industry, to increase opportunity, to share opportunity, to inspire and motivate women so that they consider pursuing a career within tech to begin with, because there isn't that representation there necessarily for them to aspire to be something that they may not necessarily see. So a lot of as of recent, the challenges that I have faced are mostly online just because people are weirdos. And I think um, people can be quite sensitive when it comes to tech because they're like, oh, you work in tech, you must have a lot of money and all that jazz. So yeah, it's just people just having personalities on the internet, and just moving a bit weird when I talk about high salaries in tech or getting into tech and stuff like that. I'll get people questioning me like, oh, do you really work in tech? Like, how did you get into tech and all that jazz? And I'm like, whatever. I don't care. Like,
Yeah, social media is definitely a weird place. Especially, I mean, is this mainly with TikTok or Instagram? Because I think TikTok is more wild than Instagram, but maybe
yeah, to
I'm
be fair, I try not to get too involved in the politics of people that might say like weird comments because I'll just delete it. Like, I'm here, like, so whatever insecurities you may have and whatever experiences you may have, it's clearly different to what I'm having, kind of thing. But it is somewhat spread across the two. I think maybe more so TikTok, but Instagram as well. I'm also seeing it. LinkedIn not so much because obviously on LinkedIn it's a more mature crowd. They're grown. You are exposed to a realm of pathways and careers and conversations and stories of people who broke into tech and how they broke into tech and the challenges and stuff. And that information isn't necessarily relayed onto these social media platforms, which are mostly, you know, populated by Gen Zs and millennials. So a part of it is an educational piece trying to inform and encourage, Gen Zs and millennials to even consider careers within these spaces and even introducing them to the concept of tech and working in, cybersecurity or data. But also I can get a lot of not a lot of, but people just being bad vibes essentially because maybe they, unfortunately the reality is, their tech journey, they might be on their tech journey, they haven't broken into tech, and then I'm coming along say, hey, you can get into tech, and they might feel some type of way about me sharing that, because they're still on that journey, they found it difficult, etc. And then they might comment down below, say some nasty comments, or they themselves don't believe the salaries I'm sharing, they don't believe the information I'm sharing, and they're skeptical because they haven't been exposed to that. But it is what it is. Like, I don't care, because at the end of the day, the intention of why I create this content is to inspire, educate, inform people, in particular Black women. It's not only exclusively to them, but I'm a Black woman, so naturally that's who my audience will relate to. But that's my intention, purpose, and reason why I do this is to inspire other people to consider careers within tech. The one or two comments about whatever, why do women get these opportunities? Why is it women? Why is it not men? I don't care about that, because I know that the impact that I should be having when I share these opportunities could hopefully change someone's life, or help them elevate in their careers.
Yes, definitely. And I find your content really inspiring and eye-opening. I love it when you share the salaries
Mhm.
and all the different career opportunities. It's really inspiring. And I know you mentioned Yasmin as somebody who kind of helped you to open your eyes and open the doors for you to like get into tech. Do you have
Mhm.
any advice for somebody who's maybe looking for like a mentor, how they could go about it?
Okay, yes. Yeah, so mentorship is interesting. So with regards to mentorship, again, the networking aspect. So networking within your organization and networking without your organization, right? You in your organization, you find people who are a part of groups, women in tech, women in data, or technology in general, and you're proactive in those groups, right? And you find out what events are going on, you know, what's going on within that realm, etc. And then utilize the opportunity to be like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Is there anyone here or that would be interested in mentoring me to find out more about, XYZ career, or to grow in my career? Um, I've done a sort of a video on this on my TikTok page, shameless plug. The second one is again networking outside of your organizations, being part of communities and groups, where you're exposed to people, you have a conversation with someone, they say, oh, I work in this, blah, blah. So, oh, that's really interesting. I'm really looking to get into that. I've done some research in this, that, and the other. If you have capacity, would you consider potentially being my mentor in the space? So I think networks is so important when doing that, because it helps you, grow, and people and the mentors can help give you advice or prevent you from making the same mistakes that you made, to help elevate in your career. I would also say again, LinkedIn, right? Find people in the roles and the jobs that it is that you want to get into. I think it's really important to have done some of your own research as well. Like, don't just go in and message someone, hey, I want to get into tech, can you be my mentor? Like, I can't really help you because tech is so broad. But if you come with your research and an agenda, and kind of a structured goal, it makes the job of the mentor more easy. So if you say, hey, we work at the same company, I really want to get into data analytics, I've studied for XYZ course, or I'm doing this course online, I see you also work at the same company doing data analytics, I would love to have a conversation with you, etc., etc., etc. Or, what, I'd love, potentially, if you have capacity, for you to be my mentor, as data is an area that I want to get into. So when you are looking for mentors, try and do research about their mentor and say, hey, I saw you did this, 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 and this. This is something that I want to grow into. If you have capacity, I'd love to be. Would you consider being my mentor? As I think you could really help me in my career progression.
Those are some great tips. I would love to know, like, what are some recent innovations or trends with regards to the tech world that have caught your eye or like excited you?
Oh, I think again, it's Chat GPT. I think ChatGPT, the te OpenAI technology is fantastic. Like I said, with my videos, I can put the transcript of my videos in ChatGPT and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, can you create a LinkedIn post along these lines, right?" And it does it for me, and I can just simply, you can automate the whole system from end to end, automation and AI, automate from end to end. As soon as I post a TikTok video, creates a transcript. That transcript is read by an AI script. That AI technology will then create a LinkedIn post for me, and then I just go and read it, modify and edit it. And I just think it's amazing. I've been researching into AI jobs, and there's one job that I find fascinating, which is called prompt engineering. And so prompt engineering is where you basically try and optimize the answers that ChatGPT gives you based on the answers, based on the way you question. Yeah, based on the way you question, essentially. So the answers you get from ChatGPT really depend on somewhat the information you give it, but the way in which you ask ChatGPT the question. So you can give ChatGPT the same information, but the output might be slightly different based on how you ask it. And there's actually roles called prompt engineering where people look into what are the best prompts to ensure the best output for you know, the results you get from ChatGPT. And it's going to be interesting, you know, when companies start incorporating this technology into their organizations, how it could be used for, you know, people wanting to ask questions or, you know, to find out more information about a company or organization and stuff. So as well as it being for personal use, that prompt engineering, I'm really excited about it to see how it will play out from a cybersecurity perspective. There's I'm interested but also scared about the world of deep fakes and biometric hacking, where essentially, you know, we're all on the internet. Someone could go on your profile, get all of the video footage of you, and then create a deep fake of you saying complete and utter rubbish. But your digital footprint has enabled someone to just create content of you and do whatever they want. And biometric hacking as well, where people, you know how, you know, you call somewhere and they say, hey, do you want to use your voice to as a security protection? Well, there's now I can't remember, it's biometric hacking, where now they can and people can basically use your voice, manipulate your voice through AI and stuff to get your user credentials. So yeah, it's interesting AI, its useful use cases, but also how it could also be used for things like deep fakes, biometric hacking, and you know, the challenges that can come with that essentially.
Yes, those are all extremely trendy topics, and I definitely think that it's become even more interesting as it's become more accessible to the everyday person. So it'll be interesting to see how people integrate all of these new technologies into our lives and how people are going to utilize them.
Yeah, I think just to add as well, I saw something about AI influencers. So there's pages where these like social media pages, it looks like potentially the person's real, but they're not. They're literally created off AI and they're making millions. Wow, they've got millions of followers and potentially are going to make millions from a person or a thing that doesn't exist. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Definitely. We're coming to the end of this podcast episode. It's been extremely interesting and we've covered a range of topics, but most importantly, where can people find you?
I'm on TikTok, STEM_babe. I'm on Instagram, STEM_babe underscore, and LinkedIn. I think I'm like linkedin.com/company/STEM babe. So you can find STEM babe on LinkedIn as well. My Instagram and TikTok content, it's just video content really. My LinkedIn page is really useful because a lot of the time I'll just literally repost information that I see on my page that's quite useful and that I just don't have the capacity or the time to make videos about. A lot of the opportunities that you see that I post, I actually get from LinkedIn just because my network are always sharing opportunities and they don't necessarily know how to best share that information with the Gen Z and millennial audience. So if you want to get the most opportunity or be exposed to as many opportunities as you can, follow me across all three platforms.
Definitely do that, guys. It's been great having you on. Thank you for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode with me, your host, Kelly. I hope you came away from this episode feeling inspired and gained so much more knowledge about women in STEM. Don't forget to check out all my other podcast episodes, as they also have a wealth of knowledge on different topics. Please make sure to check out the description link for my social medias at Kelly_engineer on Instagram, as well as there will be links for other podcasts, as well as links to the podcast guests' information. Thanks for listening.